Hey listeners, welcome back to another out-of-world news story with Unraveled Tales, where time itself unravels its captivating tales and reveals the hidden secrets of the past. Prepare to embark on an extraordinary journey as we delve into the depths of history and bringing you riveting and immersive real stories from different eras. Well, my friends, today's story is published by Norseman 123. Wife of 20 years cheated on me with her tennis coach, so I took the ultimate revenge. Full story. We'll go to the story and see what happened in next. My name is Frank Grimes, and my wife is Peggy. We have been married for 20 years and have 2 children, Mike and Emma. I am returning home from taking Emma, our youngest, to start at university. I am looking forward to getting home and to finally confronting my wife about her affairs spanning the last 12 years. This last affair being the most serious, as she intends to leave me for her lover now that our children have gone. I'm just turning into our street and can see our house. The light is still on, so she hasn't left yet. I pull onto our drive and get out of the car. I open the front door and walk in. My wife is sitting on the sofa looking a bit scared. I don't know why I have never even raised my voice to her, let alone my hand. She looks at me and glances at the 2 suitcases standing just inside the door. I also look at the cases. Update: Peggy. Frank has gone to take Emma to start her first year at university. I'm sitting on the sofa waiting for my lover to pick me up. My bags are packed, and I've left a note telling Frank that I am leaving him for another man, but my lover is late, and I'm worried in case Frank comes home first. This is just the latest in a long line of lovers I have taken over the past 12 years, but this one is special, and we are in love. I think back over the last 12 years and the lovers I've had. The first lover was my tennis coach at the country club. He was so attentive and caring, it was a great shock when he moved away without so much as a goodbye. The next one was a work colleague, and on a work-related trip to New York, we had a little too much to drink and I woke up in his bed. At first, I was annoyed with myself, but then why not, no one will know. This affair lasted over 2 years, always on company trips and sometimes in his office when we were working late. Then one day he just didn't come to work. It was rumored that he ran away with a girl half his age who disappeared at the same time. The one after that was an old flame from college. We met by accident at charity sale. After the sale, he asked me to lunch, and we sat and reminisced about our fling at college and ended up in a motel. This lasted all of 6 months, then one day, he just didn't show up at our meeting place anymore. This brings us to my latest lover. Tom, he is the husband of my best friend. We started flirting at a BBQ he and Gina hosted. It started out innocently with a bit of flirting and then touching and finally kissing. After that first kiss, we groped each other whenever we could. We ducked in his bed and also in our bed. We were insatiable, and then we realized we were in love and needed to be together. So here I sit waiting for Tom to pick me up. He is now nearly half an hour late, and I'm getting worried that I've been dumped again. I look at Frank. He looks so calm and in control. What does he know that I don't? So, Peggy, were you going to just leave with Tom, or were you going to tell me? He knows about Tom. How did he find out? I point to a note on the table with my wedding rings on it. He looks and picks it up, throwing my rings onto the floor. I wince at the implied insult. The note: Dear Frank, as you can see, I have left you for another man. It's not important who. I love him and he loves me. We are going to move far away so you won't have to see me. Please don't try to find me. It will only cause you more hurt. We had a good marriage and some good times, but over the past couple of years we have drifted apart. I did love you and I know you loved me, but it's time to say goodbye. Peggy. I watched Frank read the note and smile. He then put the note in his briefcase and turned to me. Thank you for the note. It will make things easier when I divorce you. I won't need to show the video of you ducking Tom. What video? The one where you and Tom were in our bed ducking like teenagers while disrespecting and making fun of me. You must remember it was only last Tuesday when you said you were at the spa. Did you have me followed? How long have you known? From the beginning, you see, I've had you under surveillance since you were ducking your tennis coach. I know all about your lovers. Why didn't you say anything if you knew? Because you would have given me the usual bull SHT. It didn't mean anything. It was just love. I love only you, and of course the biggest lie, I won't do it again. It was you that frightened of my lovers, wasn't it? What did you do, threaten them or buy them off? And what about Tom? Have you bought him off as well? Why didn't you just divorce me? Because I wanted the children to grow up in a normal family atmosphere, and also if I divorced you, you would get half of everything I have worked for plus spousal support and child support. I wasn't going to pay you to duck your lovers at my expense, so I just got rid of them. Update 1. Let me tell you a little story. When I was at grade school, my best friend was a boy named George Vanini. He was a small boy and got picked on a lot, but I was always there to stick up for him and kept him out of trouble. I got the black eye and split lip instead of him. Pretty soon everyone in the school knew that to mess with him meant messing with me, and that would be painful. We stayed friends right through college, and we are still friends today. To make things a little clearer, George's mother's maiden name was Gambini, the same Gambini family that runs the East Side Rackets. George's mother wanted to break away from the family and be legit, so they sent him to a normal school and college. He graduated in business studies and law. I graduated in business studies and accountancy. Much to his mother's dismay, he joined the firm, and as my investment company grew, I was employed to invest for the firm, giving a veneer of respectability to their investments. In return, I made a lot of money. George also said that if there was anything he could do for me to just ask. Well, when I found out about your tennis pro, I called George and asked his advice. He said he could take care of it, and so the tennis pro disappeared. Oh my God, you had him kicked. I thought she was going to be sick, so I went into the kitchen and got her a bowl. Yes, and the same thing happened to your second and third lover. As soon as you started to get serious with them, I had them taken care of so that Mike and Emma would still have a mother. If you hadn't started to talk about leaving me, they would still be alive, so it's your fault they are kicked. She looked up at me with tears rolling down her face. I suppose Tom's dead too. No, I'm quite happy for you to leave me for Tom. The children are away at college now, so they won't be needing you. Tom is alive and well, not for long, and waiting for you to join him. The look on her face was priceless, with the relief she felt. Did she really think I would confess to kicked 3 men and let her live? So why didn't you let me just leave with Tom? Well, before you go, I wanted to extract a little revenge. You remember our little dog Fifi, and that I always fed her and took her out to do her business. This time she did throw up, but she missed the bowl and it went all down the front of her dress. She continued reaching until there was nothing left to bring up. Well, now you know. And I have had my little revenge. I pressed speed dial on my burner phone, and 2 large men came through the front door. These gentlemen will take you to meet Tom, and you can spend the rest of your life with him, knowing you are responsible for your ex-lover's deaths. Goodbye, Peggy, and I hope you rot in H*LL. One of the 2 men picked up Peggy's cases, while the other one escorted Peggy out to their waiting car. She never said another word. As promised, she did spend the rest of her life with Tom. They lived in his car for as long as it took to sink the 200 feel to the bottom of the old quarry 10 miles from town. Now they are all in the same place together. 1 cheating C*unt and 4 wives stealing as holes. I love my life, and I have proof that my loving wife Peggy left me for another man. The end. Story 2. An unfortunate reunion at a wedding. Hello, Mary, Michael said, as he laid his hand on the back of the chair. He was looking down at the brunette woman in her white dress as she sat at the small table on the lawn, along with a mid-50s looking man, wearing an impeccable brown suit. Mary looked up and over her shoulder at the sound of her name. It took her only half a second, but she recognized the face she used to spend so much time with. He'd aged, of course. It had been 11 years. His eyes were still that steely gray, and he had a touch of a different gray on his temples. His hairline had moved back a little. He cut a nice figure in his black suit. "Hello, Michael," Mary said, her voice almost devoid of emotion. She started to push her white folding chair back from the table so she could stand, but Michael put his hand gently on her shoulder, letting her know there was no need. Mary looked back to him and could tell Michael had anticipated her standing and giving him a hug. He wasn't interested. They stayed like that, looking each other in the eyes for about 5 seconds. Mary then turned and looked across the reception, trying to locate her daughter in her amazing white dress. She wasn't in sight. "I don't believe we've met," Michael said, stepping around Mary and extending his hand to Mary's companion to shake. "I'm Mike Nesmith, father of the bride." The man stood and took the proffered hand and gave it 3 firm pumps. "I know, I saw you give away the bride. You throw a H*LL of a wedding. The man said, "I'm Kurt Hesselbeck. I see you know my wife." "Yes, I know your wife," Michael said, glancing back at Mary. His tone was flat. "Thank you for inviting us," said Kurt. "The buffet is excellent. The ceremony was beautiful. I'd like to get the name and number of your planner for when our daughter gets married," Kurt said, smiling. "You have a daughter?" Michael asked, his eyes shifting back to Kurt. "Where is she?" "She couldn't come. The invite was for Mary and +1," Kurt explained. "Besides, while she's really well behaved, little Mary would have been very bored here. I know we'd have had to take her phone from her." Kurt was smiling while telling Michael of his pride and joy. "How old is she?" Michael asked, curious. "She'll be 11 in 2 months," Kurt said. "I'm going to have to come up with something amazing for her birthday. We gave her a hell of a party for 10. "Another girl, huh, Mary?" Michael asked, not looking at the woman he was asking. "Another?" Kurt asked, not understanding. "What do you do, Kurt?" Michael asked, as he moved to the other side of the table and pulled out a chair. At that signal, both men sat down, and Mary's heart became like lead in her chest. "I'm purchase manager for the QMEC Corporation. I keep the rare earth metals coming for phone production," Kurt explained, happy to talk business. "I've been in the position for about 6 years. Yes, 6 years. It takes me overseas a fair amount, but the pay and benefits are great." "That's amazing, Kurt," Michael said. "You got a card?" Michael was digging into the pocket of his suit and then pulled out his wallet. Kurt withdrew his own wallet from his hip pocket, pulled out a business card, and held it out to Michael across the table. Michael exchanged it with his own business card. "East Alliance Shipping, huh?" Kurt said, after scanning Michael's card. "I've used you guys. You do great dockside pickup of hazardous materials and ship fast." "What do you do there?" "I'm head of Comtrol," Michael said. "Phew, you're that guy. How big is your fleet?" Kurt asked. "Over 3,000 trucks now," Michael said. "We just added another 200 of the security armored haulers. I'm working on disbursement now. I can't imagine the daily logistics of your job. I just deal with extraction and shipping from overseas. That's mostly block tonnage," Kurt said. "You must plan things like the Allies did the D-Day invasion." "Yeah, we have our moments," Michael admitted. "We just got our security clearance upgraded. We're going to be getting some interesting government contracts soon, I hope." "Government contracts?" Kurt asked. "Nice. Lots of money to be made there." Michael nodded in agreement. "Do you have any of the pie?" Kurt asked. "I get 4%, Michael said. 4%? Of what?" "Of East Alliance Shipping," Michael said. "When I took over logistics and planning, I got a big bump and 0.5% of everything every year, capping in 2 years. Same deal as the board officers get." Kurt whistled in appreciation. "No wonder you could do this," Kurt said, gesturing around him at the 400-people wedding reception, held on an island in the middle of a lake. "Pretty impressive." Michael nodded politely in acknowledgement. "I think I just footed the bill," Michael admitted, while looking around at the event from where he sat. "Kim and her husband's mother did most of the planning. My job was to throw money until it happened. I admit, I kind of balked at the releasing of the butterflies. That was 15 grand just for that." "I'd never seen anything like that," Kurt said. "Everyone at the wedding got one of those Chinese food containers with a live butterfly in it. Rather than throw rice, there was this beautiful rising shower of color and life. It was beautiful." "It was," Michael agreed. "I just didn't know how expensive it would all be. Apparently, there's a profession called butterfly wrangler, and this is all they do. Having them for a week, having them hatch and take care of butterflies is apparently a labor-intensive job." "It was amazing," Kurt said. "How many were released?" "I don't know exactly," Michael confessed. "The Wrangler set up for 500 guests. I think Kim invited her entire graduating class. I spoiled her a bit. Her life has had some." Michael glanced at Mary. Amazing difficulties dropped into it. "Oh, what did she get a degree in?" Kurt asked. "She's working on being a pediatric surgeon," Michael told the man. "She's got a ways to go, but she's determined. If I'm lucky, her sister, little Mary, will shoot high too. You have a daughter named Mary too? Kurt gushed. Wow, what are the odds? Here's Mary, my wife, and we have a daughter named Mary after her. Yes, my little Mary was named after her mother too. Michael had a strange tone in his voice, Kurt thought. She's 17 now. She's going to graduate top of her high school class. That's amazing. Kurt beamed a smile at Michael. You must be so proud. Has she picked a school? I am proud, Michael said with a slight smile, the first one he'd let show since he approached the table. Mary went through a really bad period 11 years ago. She came close to ruining her life a couple of times. Until about age 12, she was pretty depressed. Is she okay? Kurt asked. Mary was looking at Michael, an unreadable expression on her face. Her breath quietly hitched in her chest. I think she's okay now, Michael said with a nod. She got a lot of counseling. It took a while, and we had one very, very bad incident, but she managed to put some things behind her finally. When she did that, she blossomed. She's still blossoming. Michael sat back and took a deep breath. He looked around at everything except Mary. Mary has a good selection of colleges making her offers. We have a few months yet to pick. She wants to do something in engineering, Michael said. A woman engineer? Kurt marveled. It used to be. You'd never see women in the physical sciences. Do you think she'll have a hard time because of the gender bias? If she does, she'll smash anything that gets in her way, Michael said proudly. She still has some rage in her, but she aims it well now. Anything she can't handle, I'll be there. That's excellent, Kurt smiled broadly. He was very much admiring and liking Michael. It sounds like you have a wonderful family. I almost didn't, Michael confessed. But you know, I really do. We talked about having another child, Kurt said, smiling at Mary, who sat there silently, her eyes focused on the small plate of half-eaten food in front of her. But our little Mary was a difficult birth, and my wife got a little hurt. Michael gave a polite smile. Daddy, here you are, said a young woman's voice. From out of a small crowd came Michael's daughter, the bride, in her flowing wedding dress. I've been looking for you. Why aren't you at the head table? Michael turned in his seat to look at his oldest daughter. He'd been hoping to get this matter settled before Kim and Mary saw things. Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, Kim's voice trailed off as she saw who her father was talking to, seated at the table. It only took her a couple of seconds to recognize the face. Mary looked at the bride, a mix of emotions running across her face. She started to take sharp, shallow breaths, and moisture began to gather at the bottom of her eyes. Michael stood quickly and placed himself between Kim and Mary, blocking Kim's view. Kim shifted where she stood, looking at the older woman as best she could around her father. Kim, no, Michael half whispered to his daughter. No, not now, not here. Kim locked her eyes on Michael's, her steel gray eyes looking into his, trying to understand what was boiling up inside her. Kurt stood and started to come around the table, extending his hand toward the bride. Hello, young miss, I'm Kurt Hesselbeck, and this is my wife, Mary, as you know. We've really enjoyed being here on your special day. Kim stood, tension coming off her. She looked from Kurt, who was sensing something wasn't right, and back to her father's face. What? Kim whispered. Kim, go, Michael said, his heart breaking for his daughter. He was working to keep things, himself and his daughter, under control. Much longer, and he would lose that control. I've got this. I'll explain later. Kim looked back to Kurt, whose confusion was growing. Then she stepped to the side to look at Mary. Mary had tears dropping down her cheeks as she seemed to shrink into her chair. Go, Kimmy, Michael reinforced, his tone soft. You have to go. Go to your friends. Go to your sister. Now. Kim heard the quiet commands her father was giving her, and they registered through the cascade of pain she felt. Okay. Kimmy, Michael quietly said as his beautiful daughter started to turn. Don't tell Mary, and keep her away. Kim stopped and considered for half a second, and saw the wisdom in what her father was saying. She nodded and ran her finger across one eye, then the other, trying to control her tears before her makeup was ruined. Then she turned and walked away, into the crowd which parted for her. "What happened?" Kurt asked Michael, as Michael faced away, toward his retreating daughter, and wrestled himself back into shape inside. He took a deep, cleansing breath. "I'm sorry about that," Michael said as he turned back toward Kurt. "I'm afraid I need to move on to father of the bride duties." "But what happened?" Kurt was looking from Michael to Mary, lost in what had just happened. He moved to kneel beside his crying wife, wrapping his arms around her. She leaned into him and began to quietly sob into Kurt's shoulder. Michael stood on the other side of the table and looked at Mary levelly. I think Mary reminded Kim of someone she used to know. But they know each other. Kim sent Mary the invite. Kurt said, "How could Mary remind Kim of someone like that?" Mary made a small wailing sound into Kurt's chest. "Kurt, I'm sorry to ask, but..." Michael had tried to not ask, but what little he knew about the timing of things. His curiosity and rage demanded he ask. "Does your daughter have steel gray eyes?" "What?" Kurt asked, a little annoyed at the question. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Nuo," Mary whispered as she shrank some more into her husband's protective arms. "Han?" Kurt asked, his confusion growing. "Gray eyes?" Michael asked, his voice steady, with a dark ring around the outside. "Yes, she does," Kurt replied angrily. "Now what's going on?" The crowd was giving the unfolding scene space now. "Kurt, I like you," Michael admitted. "I think you're a good man. I need your cell phone number. There's some things to share. Explanations." He pulled his phone out of his pocket. "What?" Kurt said, pulling Mary into him tighter as she openly cried. "What's your number?" Michael asked again. "Fine." Kurt near spat. "It's XXX." Michael entered the number into the new profile he was creating on his phone. "Han, what it is?" Kurt asked Mary softly. "What's happening? Do you want to go?" "Kurt, I'm sending you some pictures of my daughters when they were kids. Around 10 and 11. Some others too," Michael said as he finished creating an entry for Kurt Hasselbeck on his phone. "Oh God," Mary muttered as she drew her fists to her temples and pressed into her husband. "There's going to be some pics that have their mother and myself in them too," Michael said as he opened a folder on his pictures files and started selecting images. "You should look at them later." "What is this C** rap?" Kurt accused. "What are you doing to my wife?" Michael stopped his finger moving and looked at Kurt. "What am I doing to your..." "Yes," Kurt snarled. Michael looked at Mary, so small, so vulnerable, huddled against this man that Michael suspected she'd been deceiving for so long. "Kurt, Mary wasn't invited to the wedding," Michael stated. "What?" Kurt's face showed his disbelief. "Of course she was. How do you think we got in here?" "I don't really know, but did you ever see the invite? They were white, embossed, and about 6 by 9. Not small." Kurt's face shifted slightly as he realized he hadn't ever seen the invite. "Stop it," whispered Mary. "About 11 years ago, the thing that hurt my daughters so much was their mother walked out of their lives," Michael stated, narrated really. His tone was flat, controlled. "She'd left a note saying she was tired of our lives, tired of the paycheck-to-paycheck situation we'd been in for years." Kurt was just staring with dwindling anger at Michael as he knelt there. "She'd complained about things. It was hard for her," Michael said. "We were in a small apartment. Kim was 12, Mary was 6. It was a handful for her. I wasn't quite bringing in enough money. I hadn't gotten on the managerial track regionally yet." Michael stopped, took a deep breath, and composed himself. "Then we found out she was almost 2 months pregnant, with our third," Michael said, looking off into the distance. "So, I think she just had enough." Michael continued, and while doing so, he started selecting images on his phone again. "I don't really know. I have a 1-page note from her, left on the table, as she walked out the door that last time." Michael made decisions on a couple more images and added them to the list. "I looked for her. I called and emailed," Michael said as he was finishing his choices. "Nothing." Kurt could feel his wife trembling and shaking as he held her. but he was watching Michael. Even though Michael's tone was so even, the pain in the man's voice was palpable. The girls didn't handle it well. Michael confessed, "I didn't handle it well." Michael sent off the pictures to Kurt's phone. Eventually, I got an amazingly lucky break. I started to bring in money we could use. We had a lot of friends, including a social worker, who got Mary into counseling. Things improved, money-wise, but the girls, they can't understand why their mother abandoned them. Kurt's phone chirped, signaling it had received a text. "I have to go, but I'm going to say 2 things in parting," Michael said, looking toward the head table. "One is, I'm sorry. I never dreamed this would happen. I don't know how to handle this, and I've probably done it wrong. Please remember, I'm sorry." Kurt frowned, not understanding. The second is, everyone in my genetic lineage has gray eyes. It's a dominant trait, apparently. Kurt's face lost its tension, and his eyes widened slightly. Michael looked at Kurt, sympathy showing on his face. "I'm sorry," Michael said again, then turned and strode toward the head table. Kurt pushed his wife away from him slightly, to gaze at the woman he'd married 11 years ago. Mary looked back through tear-filled eyes and sobbed, "I'm so sorry," over and over. The end. Thank you once again for being such an amazing audience. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel and stay connected with our community. I look forward to reading your valuable advice and working together to make our channel the best it can be.